Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Timmy. Someone had messaged me this particular question, so that's what we're going to be discussing. She said, "Hello Timmy, please, I would like to understand what are the examples of acts of submission in a marriage." And then the second part of her question is like, I also have another question. To go against submission as a woman, does it mean we have to religion and the church as well? So I think what she's trying to say is if she decides to go against submission, does that mean she has to go against religion and the church as well? So first off, she said, what are the acts of submission in marriage, right? So first off, let's ask what is submission in itself. Then we'll look at the word extensively, right? So submission says the action of accepting or yielding to a superior force or to the will or authority of another person. Pay attention to the words that are being used. Yielding to a superior force and to the will and the authority of another person. Then let's look at what marriage is, right? So the dictionary says marriage is a legal and socially recognized union between two people called spouses, right? It is also known as matrimony or wedlock. A legally and socially recognized union between two people. Emphasis on union between two people. Now, the question of submission in marriage comes majorly, that thing comes from religion, right? So religion kind of pushed the idea of submission a lot, and people are religious, right? So there's nothing you can do about that. But then the question that I would like for you to pay attention to is this: what does it mean for something to be a union? I want us to go over these definitions. The action of joining together or the fact of being joined together, especially a society or association formed by people with a common interest or purpose. That is what a union is. Now, most of these misconceptions or most of these ideas comes from the fact that religion defines marriage as an institution. So let's check what institutions are, because I've tried to talk about this before, but then it's like people don't really get exactly what I was talking about. So let's go over it together. Institutions is an organization, right? Founded for a religious, educational, professional, or social purpose. It is an organization. Pay attention to these things closely. A union, another definition say a bond between two people. The action of joining together or the fact of being joined together, that is what a union means. Now, the relationship between a man and his wife, or wife and wife, husband and husband, whatever, the idea of marriage is between two people. You can see that there is a very wide difference between an institution and a union. And like I said in my previous video, there's this video that I was addressing marriage and institution, marriage a union. When they say marriage is an institution, it is not talking about the people in that union. Marriage in itself, it is a union, like two people deciding to come together to share their lives, right? So outside of sharing their lives, there is no purpose to why these people are getting married again, right? So if you say union, like let's say for instance, we are taking NURTW, that's National Union of Road Transport Workers. They have a union, and the purpose of that union, right, is to be able to bind them together in brotherhood, and whatever they are doing as road transport workers, they will find support within each other. That is the union. Now, they go ahead to institutionalize National Union of Road Transport Workers. This could be anything. It could be National Union of Teachers. It could be Nigerian Union of Teachers, or anything at all. let's take student union government, for instance. If you're a student, if you all come together as students and say, we need to reach our authority, we need to be able to reach the school authority so that our own concerns can be heard to the school authority. Now, what those people are doing, what those students come together to do, they are having a union, right? Now, institutions, on the other hand, is that even though this union exists, authorities are not in recognition of this union. So what becomes institution is that within this union, we have gone to register ourselves as a union. So we went there to institutionalize ourselves so that the government or whatever authority is aware that this union is in existence. That is what marriage as an institution means. That you and I have decided to unite. But this our union will not be socially recognized or religiously recognized or legally recognized. So we want to go and institutionalize it. So the introducing of authorities into this our partnership, that is what makes marriage an institution. So when they say there has to be a head in this institution, yes, that is true. There has to be a head in the institution. And the head of that institution, for Nigeria, it will be the Minister of Interior, because marriage registries are under the Ministry of Institution. So the marriage institution is headed by the Minister of Interior. I just hope you're following. The Minister of Interior. That is what makes marriage an institution. The head of that relationship is not the husband. It is the head of that institution is not the husband. It is the Minister of Interior. Okay? Now, for a union, in a secular union where they have a common goal, like the NURTW, the SUG that I said, as long as you remain a road traffic worker, this brotherhood or whatever is in support of you, they will fight for you and all. And because there are too many people within that gathering, there are too many people, they pick representatives that will represent them to the institution, which is the government, right? To the authority that institutionalized them, which is the government. If you within yourselves, right, within this union now, right, let's take SUG, NURT, or whatever the union you're using to represent. If within yourselves you come and be like, okay, we have this issue, so we need a representative, right? It is now between you to decide who represents you on your issues. So you can decide to choose a president or whatever representative to that union. And even at that, it is because this is a large group of people, right? So we are not talking about two people, because honestly, within two people, there is no need for a representative. But let's assume there is a need for a representative. By all means, it is now left for the both of you who are in that union to choose who your representative is. So assuming you have a function and you need somebody to represent you, both of you can choose between yourselves who will represent you. Now, on the other hand, marriage is not like the other social union, like all these NURTW and SUG, because they have a common goal. These other ones have a common goal, right? So if it is NURTW, as long as we are still in this business, right, we are going to be needing representation. So hence the need to have officials within that this thing. And those officials does not necessarily mean it is a hierarchy, It does not mean the president is bigger than the other person. No, it is just a representative. So you're just like the voice of the people within the union. Now, it's in the same manner that even the government allows that within your marriage, y'all choose and make the laws and the rules and whatever, however you want to live within your marriage, as long as you are not going against the law, taking another person's right, it is okay. The government does not mind whoever you choose or whatever you choose to do within that union. So the way they want to enforce it to you, that marriage is, that is the order of marriage and there's nothing you can do about it. Now they begin to, when they want to enforce those ideas, they now run back to religion and tell you that that is how God made it, that is how God made it. Okay, so you cannot question these things. But did God actually form marriage to begin with? Absolutely not. Marriage is a social construct that predates religion. Marriage existed before religion, right? So there is no way that religion would now hijack that concept and tell you that it was a religious thing or it was institutionalized by God. At first, marriage started as a political thing, a union between two families to ensure that those families remain in business forever. That's historically, that is the history of marriage. But over time, it has been changing and it has become a romantic thing. It has become a romantic involvement. Now, the problem that I have with women is this. You want, all the time they tell you this is what men want. If you don't submit to a man, marriage will be hard for you. If you don't submit, this is what men want. At what point are you going to take a pause and be like, I am a human being and I have needs also. I have the things that I want. Then you set your own standards, just like the way men are setting their own. You set your own and present it. This is my own rules, or these are my own standards. And if they are not willing to take it that way, they leave it. But women have been indoctrinated into being desperados for marriage. So the indoctrination is what makes women feel like you have to live by the standards of the man and your own does not matter. So you find women always shrinking to accommodate men and the things that men desire. Now back to her question, now that all this definition, and to also further check the definition of submission for you to know that it is harmful and in fact very dangerous, go ahead and check the synonyms of submission. Let's check synonyms. Like if I'm to not use the word submission, what other word can I, that's what synonyms means, right? What other words can I actually remove submission and replace for it to capture the same meaning? According to Merriam-Webster dictionary, it even says obedience, compliance, subordination, conformity, to conform. That word even just triggers me as well. Surrender, submissiveness, acquiescence, capitulation, subservience, discipline, obeisance, suppression, yielding, tractability, deference, humility, meekness, right? Servility, docility. Docility means docile. It is docile, right? Subserviency, teachability, repression, right? Trainability, slavishness, control, obedience, subordinateness. Look at them. Just in case you thought I'm lying, here you go. I'm going to screenshot this and put it somewhere here for you to see, right? Look at the antonyms, right? It says disobedience, rebellion, non-compliance, defiance, insubordination, recalcitrant, rebelliousness, willfulness. Emphasis on willfulness, right? Self-will, waywardness, intractability, unruliness, disrespect, non-cooperation, insolence, revolt, insurrection, impudence, outbreak, stubbornness, like I'm going to put all the other ones here. Now within the antonyms of this word, there are some that when you hear them on their own, they are bad words, and there are some that are not bad. Like for instance, talking about self-will, it is not a bad word, right? So every human being should have self-will, but the fact that you have self-will is considered you being unsubmissive, and then the punishments that would be given to you is that of saying you're disobedient, you're rebellious, you are wayward. So these are the words that religion and men also use to say if a woman is not submissive, that is what she is, and that is not true, right? Because to self-govern is not a bad thing, to have self-will is not a bad thing, but religion tells you that it is a bad thing. May I add that within institutions, there has to be submission, because you have to be in obedience to the laws, because there are authorities involved, right, within institutions. And those authorities make up the law for orderliness within a country. Now, if you're not in submission to those laws, it is that you are stubborn, you are wayward, you are all those other bad words that we said, right? You're disobedient to the law, and all those things are fine to say that within institution. So hence the need for people, and men specifically, and the church to call marriage an institution, so that they get an opportunity to demonize women who refuse to be in submission within a partnership. I hope you understand this particular part of it better. You submit to institutions because they are authorities. You do not submit to partnership because you are on the same level with the partners that you have. It's just like your friends. You cannot submit to your friends because your friendships are not an authority. Of submission in marriage, of acts of submission in marriage. I'm going to give you life example, people's true life stories, right? So I used to attend this church where the wife of the pastor is an educationist, and by educationist, she is a professional teacher. She's a tutor by profession. So her husband is a pastor. Aside from that, I think he studied agric, either agric or agric or botany or something like that in the university. That was what he studied. Now they had 3 kids, and it was time for their first son to go to secondary school. Now this lady had gone round to check schools, and if you don't understand it, let me know in the comment section. I'll make a video to clarify this particular from the lens of a professional, which is an educationist. And she had told her husband that she has studied this thing. She thinks she prefers this school, and their son would go to that school because in that vicinity and within what they can afford, that seemed to be the best. And this man said that their son will not go to that school. And why? Because she confronted him in that manner, that she should have come and begged him, beckoned with him, or suggested. She should not have told him that their son would go to this school. And how did we know? He came to preach about it in church when he was preaching about submission. He came and said that thing, and their son actually did not go to that school. Their son ended up, she in submission did not force it, so their son went to the school that he prefers. Now I said I use this example so that you can see the dangers of this thing. Even though this lady is a professional in her field, instead of them to be in a union, right, where they end up making the best decision for their child, and a representative, if you remember when I was giving definitions, those representatives that I said, like in the SUG and the rest, y'all choose who will represent you, because in these issues that you're having, you know that this particular person is more capable to represent you there. Instead of them to adopt that partnership and that union to say, okay, this is my partner and we are on the same team, and this person has more knowledge on this particular subject, so she should handle it. He used his pride and his ego, and because religion has made provision for his pride and ego to flourish by telling him that the woman he marries has to be in subjection to him, or in submission to him, or in subservience to him, he overruled her and made their son go to a school where it is not the best decision for them. Now, this is one example. By submission, whatever the person says, you see all this message that people tell you that you must learn to submit to the person. They are trying to tell you that even when you believe you are right, you cannot be right if the man says you are wrong. So even when you are actually right, you have to learn to repress yourself. Your emotions must be repressed, and the will of that man must be done. Now, a few weeks ago, a lady was on one of my comment section where I was talking about submission, and she said something in the lines of she does not mind, like that submission is not a bad thing, just submit with sense. And I was in the comment section telling her there is no way you will submit with sense. If you submit with sense, you are not in submission. Because what she means by submitting with sense is that whenever she feels like this particular thing he's saying she does not like it, is that she will not agree to do it. And then I told her that that is then not submission. And she went to make a video. I think other people were in the comment section like going back and forth with her. And I saw one of her videos where she was like, we are toxic feminists. She said something, she may not mention my name, but she explained this exact same scenario that happened. And she was like, we are toxic feminists. And then it kind of bothers me a lot, right? Women tend to take their own personal experiences or their life experiences, right? And they think every woman has the same opportunity. Because you are married to an educated person where if he believes in submission, you believe in submission and you married him, and if you disagree with him, he will not unalive you, he will not hit you, he will not send you packing. That is not the reality for every woman. So because you have maybe a family who whenever something happens, you have a family to lean back on, it is not the same for every woman. Hence, we tell women that submission is not, do not buy into that, because when you marry based on those things, the possibility of your marriage not working is high. Even when the marriage lasts, it does not mean the marriage is working, because at the end of the day, you're going to be sad because you're repressing yourself. You're repressing yourself so that the man can remain married to you. And most of these pastors who actually preach submission, I personally believe that they know that they are capable of physically assaulting women, and they also know that men will assault women if women marry men. These men know that men are a danger to women. So they preach this thing. Is more or less like saying, do not provoke him so that he does not assault you. In fact, I've heard a preacher literally say that. Now, this submission thing that is in the Bible, let's take it back to a part of your question, right? Or the first part of your question. What I'm going to tell you is submission means you cannot disobey the person, you cannot argue with the person. It is master-slave relationship, it is compliance. And the next place that the Bible used submission was when he was talking to masters, be in submission to your slaves, be in obedience to your masters. Other translations say be in submission to your masters. So it is a master-slave relationship. For some reason, the master-slave thing in the Bible is fading away, or the scripture is never even talked about. And the reason is because slavery is now generally accepted to be a bad thing, right? And they understand that a human being should not be in subjection to another person. But they still expect this from women. Why? Because there has never been a time that women all came together to revolt against these things. So they keep on telling you, oh, you have to submit, while the slave master submission has been eradicated. And the only reason is because, if that scripture were to be preached the way they preach about submission, I'm telling you, black men will not still be in church. There will be no single black man in church. So that scripture has become redundant. But the one telling women to submit is still very active. To also add that this lady who said submission cannot, you have to submit with sense. Vashti in the Bible, the wife of Xerxes, right? King Xerxes. This woman was asked to come out. Her husband and his other drunk friends asked her to come out and display her beauty. And she said no. She submitted with sense by saying no. And you see what they did to her. They said they dethroned her as queen, and they banished her from the palace and went ahead to marry Esther. And look at what the Bible did. The Bible talked about Esther as though she was such an exemplary person for women. Should I also add that these people were not even Christians to begin with, but they are like, she's such an example to women. They preach about Esther as an example to women these days, and women are eating it up without asking questions. Now, to the last part of your question, where you're like, to revoke against submission, are you still going to will you still have to remain within religion or the church? Here is the thing. I'm not going to tell you what to do when it comes to religion, your faith. You have your own convictions. You have why you want to. The reason why you are a Christian today, I cannot tell you that your experiences are not valid or anything. But what I'm going to tell you is this. Do not be close-minded, and do not pay attention only to the things within the church. Be open-minded so that you can make your decisions subjectively, instead of it's just something that I was raised with and that's the only thing I'm exposed to. It is very dangerous to only be exposed to one form of knowledge. It is important to hear people out before you deduce. But then, I'm not going to be the one to choose your religion for you, or whether to go to church or not to go to church. But whatever you find harmful to you, that it is harmful to women, I believe that submission is harmful to women. I have seen women die because they were submissive, right? I don't even want to go into that, but so I have seen women die because they were submissive, right? And there are so many other situations, scenarios of women harming themselves on account of submission. Because even when you are right, what makes it even more dangerous is that even when you're speaking from a place of knowledge, the men overthrow you, even though they are not knowledgeable, especially when you're dealing with children issue, right? You would see a mother who has her children, and she's been the one taking care of this child. She's close to this child. She understands the struggle or the behavior of this child more. And then the father will, from nowhere, that maybe does not have that good bond with his child, maybe he's always at work, coming back late, and he does not understand how that child behaves. And the woman will be like, oh, this child, I don't think this child is feeling well, we should go to the hospital. And the man will just be like, please, there's nothing wrong with the child, this, until he gets late. I have seen and I have heard scenarios like that. So submission is dangerous. Unions, partnership works best when human beings are in, allow people to function within their area of strength.